St. Clair O'Connor Community Inc. 2701 St. Clair Ave East, Toronto, Ontario M4B1M5 Policy and Procedures. 2.3. In pursuit of this goal, Department Administration Subject Workplace Anti-Harassment Effective Date October 2010 Category General Supersedes Policy Number per I-23 Issuing Authority Executive Director Page 1 of 9. Purpose. It is public policy in Canada to recognize the dignity and worth of every person and to provide for equal rights and opportunities without discrimination. St. Clair O'Connor Community Incorporated, SCOC, is committed to building and preserving a safe, productive, and healthy working environment for its employees based on mutual respect. In pursuit of this goal, SCOC does not condone and will not tolerate acts of harassment against or by any SCOC employee. Every employee has a right to freedom from 1. Harassment in the workplace by the employer or agent of the employer or by another employee because of race, religion, ancestry, place of origin, color, ethnic origin, citizenship, creed, age, record of offenses for which a pardon has been granted and not revoked, marital status, family status or disability. It is also a violation of SCOC's anti-harassment policy for anyone to knowingly make a false complaint of harassment or to provide false information about a complaint. Individuals who violate this policy are subject to disciplinary and/or corrective action, up to and including termination of employment. Our workplace anti-harassment policy is not meant to stop free speech or to interfere with everyday interactions. However, what one person finds offensive, others may not. Generally, harassment is considered to have taken place if the person knows, or should know, that the behavior is unwelcome. Harassment is often defined as engaging in a course of vexatious comment or conduct that is known or ought reasonably to be known to be unwelcome. Or sexual or racial harassment can be defined as any behavior, in the form of words, gestures, or actions, generally repeated, that has undesired sexual or racial connotations, that has a negative impact on a person's dignity or physical psychological integrity, or that results in the person being subjected to unfavorable working conditions. Policy and Procedures. St. Clair O'Connor Community Inc. 2701 St. Clair Ave East, Toronto, Ontario M4B1M5. Department Administration Subject Workplace Anti-Harassment Effective Date October 2010 Category General Supersedes Policy Number per I-23 Issuing Authority Executive Director Page 2 of 9. Harassment is offensive, insulting, intimidating, and hurtful. It uncomfortable work environment and has no place in employee relationships. Definitions creates and personal harassment is any unsolicited, unwelcome, disrespectful, or offensive behavior that an underlying sexual, bigoted, ethnic or racial connotation and can be typified as an implied or expressed threat of reprisal for refusal to comply with a sexually oriented request, a demand for sexual favors in return for continued employment or more favorable employment treatment, unwelcome remarks, jokes, innuendos, propositions, or taunting about a person's body, attire, sex, or sexual orientation and/or based on religion, suggestive or offensive remarks, bragging about sexual prowess, offensive jokes or comments of a sexual nature about an employee, unwelcome language related to gender, displaying of pornographic or sexist pictures or materials, leering, suggestive persistent staring, physical contact such as touching, patting, or pinching, with an underlying sexual connotation, sexual assault. For the most part, victims of sexual harassment are female. However, conduct directed by female employees towards males and between persons of the same sex can also be held to constitute sexual harassment. Racial harassment. Ethnic harassment is defined as any conduct or comment which causes humiliation to an employee because of their racial or ethnic background, their color, place of birth, citizenship, or ancestry. Examples of conduct, which may be racial or ethnic harassment, include unwelcome remarks, jokes or innuendos about a person's racial or ethnic origin, color, place of birth, citizenship, or ancestry, displaying racist or derogatory pictures or other offensive material, insulting gestures or practical jokes based on racial or ethnic grounds which create awkwardness or embarrassment, refusing to speak to or work with someone or treating someone differently because of his or her ethnic or racial background. Managing and/or coaching that include counseling, performance appraisal, work assignment, and the implementation of disciplinary actions is not a form of personal harassment, and the policy does not restrict a manager/supervisor's responsibilities in these areas. Policy and Procedures Department Administration Subject Workplace Anti-Harassment Effective Date October 2010 Category General Supersedes Policy Number per I-23 Issuing Authority Executive Director Page 3 of 9. St. Clair O'Connor Community Inc. 2701 St. Clair Ave East, Toronto, Ontario M4B1M5. Application of this policy. This policy applies to all individuals working for the organization including frontline employees, temporary employees, contract service providers, contractors, all supervisory personnel including the executive director and the board of directors. The organization will not tolerate personal harassment whether engaged in by fellow employees, managers, officers, directors, or contract service providers of the organization. SCOC will not tolerate any form of harassment or discrimination against job candidates and employees on any grounds mentioned above, whether during the hiring process or during employment. This commitment applies to such areas as training, performance, assessment, promotions, transfers, layoffs, remuneration, and all other employment practices and working conditions. All SCOC employees are personally accountable and responsible for enforcing this policy, and must make every effort to prevent discrimination or harassing behavior and to intervene immediately if they observe a problem or if a problem is reported to them. Procedure for reporting discrimination or harassment. Informal procedure. If you believe you have been personally harassed, you may confront the harasser personally or in writing, pointing out the unwelcome behavior and requesting that it stop, or discuss the situation with the harasser's supervisor, your supervisor, or any other supervisor other than your own. Any employee who feels discriminated against or harassed can and should, in all confidence and without fear of reprisal, personally report the facts directly to your supervisor or manager. Should the complaint involve the executive director or a member of the board of directors, the employee should directly approach the chair of the board of directors. Formal procedure. If you believe you have been personally harassed, you may make a written complaint. Written complaint must be delivered to Susan Gallant, Executive Director. Your complaint should include the approximate date and time of each incident you wish to report, the name of the person or persons involved in each incident, the name of any person or persons who witnessed each incident, a full description of what occurred in each incident. Once a written complaint has been received, SCOC will complete a thorough investigation. Harassment should not be ignored. Silence can, and often is, interpreted as acceptance. Department Administration Subject Workplace Anti-Harassment Effective Date October 2010 Category General Supersedes Policy Number per I-23 Issuing Authority Executive Director Page 4 of 9. The investigation will include informing the harasser of the complaint, interviewing the complainant, any person involved in the incident and any identified witnesses, interviewing any other person who may have knowledge of the incidents related to the complaint or any other similar incidents. A copy of the complaint, detailing the complainant's allegations, is then provided to the respondent. The respondent is invited to reply in writing to the complainant's allegations, and the reply will be made known to the complainant before the case proceeds further. SCOC will do its best to protect from unnecessary disclosure the details of the incident being investigated and the identities of the complaining party and that of the alleged respondent. During the investigation, the complainant and the respondent will be interviewed along with any possible witnesses. Statements from all parties involved will be taken and a decision will be made. If necessary, SCOC may employ outside assistance or request the use of our legal counsel. Employees will not be demoted, dismissed, disciplined, or denied a promotion, advancement or employment opportunities because they rejected sexual advances of another employee or because they lodged a harassment complaint when they honestly believed they were being harassed. Where it is determined that harassment has occurred, a written report of the remedial action will be given to the employees concerned. If the complainant decides not to lay a formal complaint, senior management may decide that a formal complaint is required, based on the investigation of the incident, and will file such document, S, with the person, S, against whom the complaint is laid, the respondent, S, and the directors of the company. If it is determined that personal harassment has occurred, appropriate disciplinary measures will be taken as soon as possible. Disciplinary measures: if it is determined by the company that any employee has been involved in personal harassing of another employee, immediate disciplinary action will be taken. Such disciplinary action may involve counseling, a formal warning, or could result in immediate dismissal without further notice. St. Clair O'Connor Community Inc. 2701 St. Clair Ave East, Toronto, Ontario M4B1M5. Department Administration Subject Workplace Anti-Harassment Effective Date October 2010 Category General Supersedes Policy Number per I, 23 Issuing Authority Executive Director Page 5 of 9. Policy: must this workplace anti-harassment never be used to bring fraudulent or malicious complaints against employees. It is important to realize that unfounded/frivolous allegations of personal harassment may cause both the accused person and the company significant damage. If it is determined by the company that any employee has knowingly made false statements regarding an allegation of personal harassment, immediate disciplinary action will be taken. As with any case of dishonesty, disciplinary action may include immediate dismissal without further notice. Special circumstances: all records of harassment, and subsequent investigations, are considered confidential and will not be disclosed to anyone except to the extent required by law. In cases where criminal proceedings are forthcoming, case of dishonesty, disciplinary action may include immediate dismissal without further notice. Case of dishonesty, disciplinary action may include immediate dismissal without further notice. SCOC will assist police agencies, attorneys, insurance companies, and courts fullest extent. Confidentiality: to the SCOC will do everything it can to protect the privacy of the individuals involved and to ensure that complainants and respondents are treated fairly and respectfully. SCOC will protect this privacy so long as doing so remains consistent with the enforcement of this policy and adherence to the law. Neither the name of the person reporting the facts nor the circumstances surrounding them will be disclosed to anyone whatsoever, unless such disclosure is necessary for an investigation or disciplinary action. Any disciplinary action will be determined by SCOC senior management and will be proportional to the seriousness of the behavior concerned. SCOC will also provide appropriate assistance to any employee who is the victim of discrimination or harassment. Employee/supervisory roles: in maintaining a positive work environment. As an employee of SCOC, you have the following responsibilities to our workplace. We trust that all of our employees will help us eliminate harassment from our workplace. Co-worker's role: if you are a co-worker who has witnessed harassment in the workplace, inform the harassed person that you have witnessed what you believe to be harassment. And St. Clair O'Connor Community Inc. 2701 St. Clair Ave East, Toronto, Ontario M4B1M5. Department Administration Subject Workplace Anti-Harassment Effective Date October 2010 Category General Supersedes Policy Number per I, 23 Issuing Authority Executive Director Page 6 of 9 that you find it unacceptable. Support is often welcome. If that person does not feel that they have been harassed, and then normally the incident should be considered closed. Inform the harasser, S, that you have witnessed the act, S, and find it unacceptable. See frequently asked questions below. Encourage the harassed person to report the incident to their manager. Managers and management's role legally: Management is responsible for creating and maintaining a harassment-free workplace. Managers must be sensitive to the climate in the workplace and address potential problems before those problems become serious. If a manager becomes aware of harassment in the workplace and chooses to ignore it, that manager and the organization risk being named co-respondent in a complaint and may be found liable in legal proceedings brought about by the complainant and/or local human rights authorities. When an employee has asked their manager to deal with a harassment incident, the manager should support the employee without prejudging the situation. Work with the employee and document the offensive action, and have the employee sign a complaint. Contact their superior and/or senior management and provide details of the incident on behalf of the employee. Frequently asked questions: what happens to the people who complain of harassment in the workplace just to retaliate against someone they don't like or get along with? This is a very unusual situation and more likely to occur when employees are not informed about the definition of workplace harassment. An explanation of the complaint procedure would discourage this type of complaint. Frivolous complaints could result in disciplinary procedures. What protection is there for me if I am falsely accused of sexual harassment? My career and reputation could be ruined. The procedure for investigation is clearly laid out and investigations are to be done confidentially and impartially. If there is no merit to a complaint, this will be documented by report. It is important to understand the philosophy of the anti-harassment policy. The company is required by statute to keep the work environment free of sexual harassment. All reasonable complaints must be investigated. Retaliation against any employee as a result of a complaint will not be tolerated. If you feel you are being treated unfairly after the initial complaint, you may complain of retaliation through the same procedure. Confidentiality is emphasized in every case to ensure. St. Clair O'Connor Community Inc. 2701 St. Clair Ave East, Toronto, Ontario M4B1M5. Department Administration Subject Workplace Anti-Harassment Effective Date October 2010 Category General Supersedes Policy Number PRI 23 Issuing Authority Executive Director Page 7 of 9. Protection of your reputation. How can the investigation be kept confidential if everyone knows what is going on? Confidentiality is identified as a major concern in all interviews carried out as part of an investigation of any harassment complaint. The employee grapevine is a part of every company and certainly beyond our ability to control. It is the responsibility of the investigator to discuss the complaint only with those who might have knowledge of the situation. Please recognize if a complaint has no merit, there can be damage done to an individual who has been accused. We encourage those with information to support the complaint process and then to leave the conclusions to the investigators. If someone tells a dirty or ethnic joke, is that harassment? Yes, inappropriate humor is a form of unacceptable behavior that would be considered harassment. Humor is cherished in our society and no one likes to be accused of not having a sense of humor. If someone objects to the sexual nature of jokes, they have a right to complain. Employees should use discretion and keep humor appropriate to a work environment. A person has to be offended for a joke to be harassment. Use common sense. Is a picture of a nude woman/man in my locker or desk considered sexual harassment? Yes, such pictures have no place in a work situation. Employees, clients, or visitors may see it and be offended or humiliated by it, as they not only may be offensive but also reflect poorly on the company image. Will the person who harassed me go to jail? If you have been sexually assaulted, a criminal action has occurred and the individual could face criminal charges. Sexual harassment is not considered under criminal law, but rather as a discriminatory employment practice. As an employer, our company is required to obey applicable provincial and/or federal statutes protecting against discrimination in employment. How serious is sexual harassment in our company? Why is this kind of emphasis being put on the subject? Harassment, of any kind, may occur in any company and we will not tolerate this behavior. This comprehensive policy is meant to ensure every employee knows what to do if incidents occur. We believe the problem is best dealt with by education for both management and employees. If I'm accused of sexual harassment, may I hire a lawyer? You may wish to consult with a lawyer. If you cooperate during the investigation, you should be able to expect fair treatment by the company. Employees who ignore or abuse the investigative process will be subject to disciplinary procedures. Could I be sexually harassed by someone of the same sex? Yes. Sexual harassment can include a homosexual or lesbian approach. St. Clair O'Connor Community Inc. 2701 St. Clair Ave East, Toronto, Ontario M4B1M5. Department Administration Category General Subject Workplace Anti-Harassment Effective date supersedes October 2010 Policy Number PRI 23 Issuing Authority Executive Director Page 8 of 9 What about an employee who wears revealing or provocative clothing? Aren't they asking for it? Certainly not, this concern is misplaced. No employee should be subjected to harassment under any circumstances. Sexual harassment often is an expression of power, not sexuality, and a person who is dressing in any particular fashion is not necessarily a target. Individuals who do not report sexual harassment have sometimes expressed the feeling that their clothing, on some occasion, may have given a harasser the wrong impression. So far my supervisor has only harassed me once. I told him/her to stop and he/she hasn't done it again yet. Is this harassment? If the supervisor has stopped the practice you are objecting to, you should consider the incident over. If it starts in the future, you may wish to pursue a complaint. If someone else is being harassed, do I have to get involved as a witness? It's their problem, not mine. You cannot be compelled to become involved. However, we trust all employees will help us eliminate harassment of any kind from our workplace. A positive, respectful workplace benefits everyone and we must all be proactive. How do you decide if it's sexual harassment if there were no witnesses and it's just one person's word against another? Many sexual harassers repeat their actions with other employees. Investigations can include former employees who have experienced this behavior. Witnesses are not always required to establish what has occurred. Acknowledgement and agreement. I acknowledge that I have read and understand the workplace anti-harassment policy of SCOC. I agree to adhere to this policy and will ensure that employees working under my direction adhere to this policy. I understand that if I violate the rules of this policy, I may face legal, punitive, or corrective action, up to and including termination of employment and/or criminal prosecution. Name, signature. Date. St. Clair O'Connor Community Inc. 2701 St. Clair Ave East, Toronto, Ontario M4B1M5. Policy and Procedures. Department Administration Subject Workplace Anti-Harassment Effective date October 2010 Witness, Category General supersedes, Administration Personnel, Policy Number PRI 23 Issuing Authority Executive Director Page 9 of 9.